Okay, I'm taking Phoenix because Phoenix is also talking about moral imperatives. And I'm just gonna type this in, make sure I spell Phoenix correctly, because last time I did not. All right. Phoenix, you're asking about moral imperatives, which works out really well for everybody right now. So welcome to the show.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it funny that, like, immediately after I typed in and, like, talked to the screener, like, you got that call, and I was like, oh.
Well, I'm curious what your thoughts are here.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering what your thoughts are, honestly.
Yeah, about imperatives in terms of, like, Kantian imperatives, or just imperatives in the colloquial sense?
No, just in general. Well, maybe, like, just, like, whether there is anything, like, that are, whether there are, like, moral imperatives, and, like, what they are and why.
Yeah, cool. So the only moral imperative that I think I subscribe to that I can think of off the top of my head would be respect for autonomy. So respecting other people and other beings' ability to just kind of be. That is the only one that really comes to mind as something that is an imperative or something you should do, that, like, positive action, as opposed to most things which are just like, don't be a dick, right? Like, don't do things.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm gonna have to think about it. That's the big one, and it does come with its own, like, set of conflicting ideas, right? Because if two people are acting autonomously in opposite ways, who do you support, you know? Or if you are acting autonomously and that action impacts somebody else, do you give up your autonomy? Do they give up theirs? So there are tensions there too. And I'm not saying it's like a one and done.
I also think, like, sorry, I wonder if, like, are there any, like, what do you think would be the, sorry, I can't words. I had a thought, but I can't articulate it. Basically, I'm wondering, like, if there's, like, an idea or something that, like, is getting in the way of someone's autonomy, like, do you think someone who, like, maybe, like, knows what, like, maybe knows the approach that would help them, like, maybe, like, do you think that person has the responsibility to, like, try to, like, help them, like, through with that, like, belief?
Interesting. So I'm assuming that would be like, do you have a moral imperative to defend someone else's autonomy?
Yeah. Like, yeah.
Okay. Honestly, the more we get into positive expectations in morality, the more we get into this conversation of, like, what the penalties are there, right? So, like, what do you risk?
Yeah.
What is the downside if you do not do something, right? Like, if I said yes, there is a moral imperative to stand up for other people's autonomy. The question then becomes, okay, what happens if you do not fulfill that imperative? What happens? Is there, like, a penalty for that? You know, are you punished in some way? Like, what does that become? Yeah. So I feel like I'd be hesitant to even say that in any objective sense. I think that personally, I value people who stand up for the autonomy of others, and I see them as more moral beings. I see them as people who I would personally want to be around. And so in that way, if you want to be friends with V, it is a moral imperative, but I'm not going to say that if you don't, something bad is going to happen to you, right? So it really does become a situation where it is up to you making those moral decisions and valuing moral action in your own head.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to think of how to say the next thing that I have to say.
Yeah, go for it. Also, you can just word vomit. I'll come back at you with a summary and see if we're on the same page.
Yeah. Uh, basically, like, let's say that someone has views that are like harmful, like to you, or like harmful in ways that like you like take issue with, and you want to like, and let's say that you like, you know, a thing or two about like how people like come to understand things, and like you have experiences where you've like come to understand things, and you think that maybe if you like actually put in the effort, you might be able to actually like dissuade them if you did it right.
Yeah.
But you also like don't want to be around the views that are like harmful to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
So
do you think there's a responsibility if being around those people is like harmful to you, but you also are always gonna like be like bothered by not having done it?
right. No, I totally get that. And that is honestly a much larger conversation that I've been having personally, especially listening to a lot of anti-racist activists in Black and brown communities, especially on places like TikTok, where they're saying, hey, the work of anti-racism, for example, which ultimately does come down to respect of autonomy, is a battle that should be being fought between white people, if that makes sense. Like, you should be doing the work of anti-racism, not in Black spaces, in white spaces, right? You should be going into those spaces and actively combating those bad ideas. And it can be very uncomfortable to think about doing that, or to put yourself in a situation where that's a conversation you need to have. And then it becomes a question of what you value more. Do you value, you know, that peace of mind of not having to do that? Or do you value knowing that you are impacting the world positively at the expense of maybe your emotional state or a relationship? So yeah, it does become this very tenuous thing that is a person by person thing, right? I would never tell every single person you should do X, because I don't know their situation, right? I don't know what their family is like. I don't know if they would be literally kicked out of the house or like physically injured if they were to bring something up. At the same time, I know what I feel morally comfortable doing. So yeah, I think the takeaway here is there aren't moral imperatives that exist outside of me. I have moral imperatives for myself and for my community and the people that I surround myself with. And it's up to me to articulate those expectations and be true to them if I want emotional peace. But I can't put that on anybody else. And unfortunately, that's why we are in a world where everybody is kind of doing their own thing and hurting each other, because they all have these moral imperatives to either do things or not do things that conflict with each other. And for that reason alone, the idea of an absolute morality...
Oh man, there's a lot of skipping out right now. Like, I can hear like half of what you're saying.
That's sorry. A bummer. Okay, well, it is time to wrap up anyway. I was going off on a tangent. Feel free to listen back if you want to catch all of the very valuable things I just said. Phoenix, thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
Bye.